This is Jim Fetzer, your host on Authentic News, right here in RBN Live. There's a fabulous story on Henry Makow that I want to share with you as soon as I can pull it up. Here we go. Advance. It's about the, what's going on in this effort here to get the elites underground. I'm having trouble pulling it up, so I'll defer it and come back to it after the break. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Why is the underground facility where elites would take shelter getting an upgrade? Very disturbing. This is Michael Snyder, very smart guy on Henry Makow. Listen to this. If a large asteroid were heading toward our planet or nuclear war were imminent, there are underground facilities where our leaders would be able to take shelter in order to ensure the U.S. government continues to operate. But as far as the general public is concerned, we would be on our own. There are no shelters for us. We would not be allowed inside the underground facilities where our leaders would be hiding. Surprisingly, we've just learned the underground facility where congressional leaders took shelter in the aftermath of 9/11 is getting an upgrade. The secretive underground FEMA base where congressional leaders hid following the 9/11 attacks is getting an upgrade. But what exactly are workers doing at Mount Weather? Well, that's classified, and the contractors doing the work have top secret security clearance. We don't know what upgrades these contractors are making or why they're making them. Is something coming? Do our leaders know something they aren't telling us? No doubt about it. Mount Weather is not the only underground facility that exists. According to USA Today, Weather is actually part of a network of underground facilities scattered across the U.S. designed to protect federal leaders during a crisis. Yes, indeed. There's something going on here, and in my opinion, it doesn't look good. And as I've explained already, the fact that there are places where the leaders can hide to protect themselves during nuclear war makes them more open to nuclear war's occurrence because they feel they have a degree of protection. That degree of protection, alas, is not something we, however, you and I would enjoy. It's just about the opposite situation where, in my opinion, those who vote for war should be the first to have their sons and daughters recruited and sent to the front lines. If you wanted to put a stop to all this nonsense about wars, that would have a profound effect. Meanwhile, India launches airstrikes on Pakistan, flights rerouted amid escalating tensions. Yes, India has launched Operation Sindoor, a series of airstrikes targeting sites in Pakistan-controlled territories in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The strikes hit unpronounceable cities, marking a dramatic escalation in the ongoing conflict between the two nations. This is not just another border skirmish. It's a direct military operation with serious consequences. Here's another. Better if they kill us. Indian deportation notices tear Kashmir families apart. At least 150 Pakistani women in India-controlled Kashmir have been ordered to leave the country after the Phalgram attack in April, which I've reported before, and I'm not alone, believed to be a false flag, staged by Pakistan to use as justification against India, just as October 7th was staged by Israel to use as justification against the Palestinians. Bashir Ahmadinejad doesn't regret his decision, but these days in Indian-controlled Kashmir's Bandipora district, he broods over how often he needs to express remorse over going to Pakistan in 2001 for arms training. There's more about it. It's ripping families apart because India is taking all these moves. Meanwhile, Turkish warships have docked in Karachi. Here we go. A Turkish warship arrived in Karachi, signaling another step in Ankara's growing military partnership with Pakistan. The Ada-class anti-submarine corvette, TCG Buyakata, pulled into port, welcomed with a formal ceremony by the Pakistan Navy. Officials described the visit as a goodwill mission, but given rising instability in the region, the timing has drawn attention. I think what's going on is that Turkey would like to take a more aggressive role toward Israel in the Middle East, but Israel has nukes, of which Turkey has none. Pakistan, however, has around 170 of these little beauties. I wouldn't be surprised if Turkey coming to the defense of Pakistan might lead to Pakistan sharing, how about 10 or 12 of those with Turkey. Meanwhile, the State Department has okayed $310 million more of training for Ukraine's F-16s. The State Department has proved in a potential $310.5 million arms sale to Ukraine for training and sustainment of the country's fleet of F-16s, U.S.-made, signaling the Trump admin is preparing to provide long-term military support. Remember now, Trump agreed to this mineral deal, and while I doubt that it's going to really amount to much in terms of benefits to the United States, it commits the United States to protecting Ukraine from Russia. How stupid is that? The Pentagon Defense Security Cooperation Agency said the sale will include aircraft modifications, upgrades, personnel training, maintenance, sustainment support, and other types of equipment. Yes, how about that? Meanwhile, a missile loaded on a drone, missiles loaded on drones were used to shoot down Russian jets. Initially, it was thought these were U.S. Sidewinder missiles. And just think about it, how clever an idea it is to put a missile on a drone. But now there's suspicion they may, in fact, be Ukrainian-made. In a stunning development over the Black Sea, Ukrainian forces have achieved a world first by using unscrewed surface vessels, commonly known as drone boats, to shoot down two Russian Su-305 fighter jets with American-supplied AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles. The incident, which occurred on Friday, marks a significant technological leap in naval warfare, transforming low-cost maritime drones into platforms capable of engaging high-value aerial targets. According to Lieutenant General Krylo Budanov, head of Ukraine Defense Intelligence Directorate, the operation was an historic moment, showcasing Ukraine's ability to adapt Western weaponry for unconventional warfare. Yes, indeed, I agree. It does that. It is significant. It's going to mark a change in the way war is conducted. Meanwhile, missile from Houthi flights halts from Yemen halts flights in Israel hours before a vote on intensifying the Gaza war. Ben Gurion International Airport. A missile launched by Iran-backed Houthi rebels. They aren't rebels. They control the government. Briefly halted flights and communication traffic at Israel's main international airport Sunday after its impact near an access road caused panic among passengers. The attack on Ben Gurion International Airport came hours before Israeli cabinet ministers were set to vote on whether to intensify military cooperation in Gaza. The army was going up tens of thousands of reserves, Israel's Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir, said. First time a missile struck the airport ground since the war in Gaza began. Well, it's not going to be the last. Meanwhile, Netanyahu vows a response to Iran after a Houthi attack on the airport. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has promised to respond to an attack from Yemen's Houthi rebels that hit Ben Gurion International Airport, adding that Iran would also face consequences from the strike. A ballistic missile launched by the Iran-allied Yemeni rebel group hit the perimeter of the airport on Sunday, damaging a road and a vehicle and causing air traffic to stop, according to photos and footage verified by Al Jazeera. Meanwhile, it turns out that Yemen is declaring an air blockade of Israel as Gaza is being starved to death. After today's successful ballistic missile strike by Yemen upon Ben Gurion Airport, the Houthis have declared an air blockade of Israel. No aircraft in or out of Israel until the war against Gaza is stopped. Yemen Houthis, terrorists they're called, but I regard them as freedom fighters, threatened to target airport civilian planes flying to, from, or over Israel, aiming to impose a comprehensive air blockade in response to Israel's planned Gaza operation. They urge airlines to halt flights for safety. Meanwhile, the Palestinian government media office renewed its warning of an imminent humanitarian catastrophe in the Gaza Strip as the Israeli occupation has prevented the entry of infant formula, food supply, and all forms of humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip for 64 days. More than 3,500 children are on the brink of starvation. The office stated that 70,000 children were hospitalized due to severe malnutrition. Under this systematic blockade, more than 3,500 under the age of 5 are facing imminent death from starvation, while around 290,000 are on the verge of collapse every day. 1.1 million children lack access to the minimum food required for survival. This is an act of genocide carried out by the occupation through starvation amidst a disgraceful international silence. I agree. Outrageous. Meanwhile, it turns out that Mike Waltz was ousted. I may have reported this before, but it's worth reporting again. Over intense coordination with Netanyahu on plotting a war with Iran. President Trump ousted Mike Waltz as national security advisor, not only due to Signalgate, but due to his intense coordination with Israeli PM Bibi Netanyahu on pushing for war with Iran, according to the Washington Post. President Trump's decision to oust his national security advisor, Michael Waltz, was a product of a slow accumulation of frustration with a former Green Beret officer who is seen as far more eager to use military force than his boss in the Oval Office. Waltz's fate was sealed by his inclusion of a journalist on a sensitive Signal group chat in March. But he had been clashing with other top officials since early in the admin, including over whether to pursue military action against Iran, senior officials and Trump advisors reported yesterday. Meanwhile, Israeli airstrikes pound Yemen for second day, targeting the Sana'a airport. The Israeli military launched heavy airstrikes on Yemen for the second day on Tuesday, targeting the Sana'a International Airport and other infrastructure in the capital. I didn't think there was anything left. After the U.S. did 1,000 strikes, what can be left for Israel to destroy? According to Yemeni media, at least 3 were killed, 38 wounded in the attacks, targeting the airport, a cement factory, and power plants. The IDF said that strikes on the airport targeted runways, aircraft infrastructure, declared the airport totally disabled, The IDF claimed the attack on the cement factory constituted a blow to the regime's economy and its military buildup. The Israeli strikes that hit Yemen Monday targeted the port of Hodai and the Baji cement factory, which is also in the Hodai province, according to the Yemeni news agency Sabah. The attacks on the port and the cement factory killed at least 4 and wounded 39. Wow. Meanwhile, Israeli strikes haven't receded in Gaza, killing 110 in 3 days as children starve under the blockade. This is gruesome beyond words. Israeli attacks on Gaza killed 110 Palestinians, wounded 400 over the past 3 days, according to death toll estimates released by Gaza's health ministry, as children are starving to death under the U.S.-backed Israeli blockade. In the same 3-day period, 7 bodies of Palestinians killed by previous Israeli attacks were recovered from the rubble. Health ministry members account for dead and wounded Palestinians brought to hospitals and morgues. There's still a number of victims under the rubble and on the streets, and ambulances and civil defense crews cannot reach them. Of course not, because the Israelis pick them off. They kill them, or they set off new bombs. They set up one bomb, then wait for the first responders to arrive and set off another. Outrageous. Meanwhile, Israeli strike in Gaza that launched a boy onto a roof targeted an official released in the hostage deal. An Israeli airstrike that launched a 7-year-old boy onto the roof of a neighboring building in Gaza City and killed 15 members of his family, including 5 sisters, targeted Gaza Finance Ministry official who was released in a prisoner swap just 2 months earlier. A video released by Palestinian journalists showed the boy, Ali Faraj, moments after he was blown onto the roof, crying for help. Nearby was his dead father and parts of one of his sisters. I can hardly read these reports. They're so gruesome. They're so awful. Meanwhile, 60,000 Israeli reservists are being called up. They're going to undertake an all-out assault to try to finish a job, in the memorable phrase of Donald J. Trump. Israel ordering 60,000 reservists on active duty against a starving population. On Gaza, Dave, 575. At least 40 Palestinians were killed, scores wounded Saturday in attacks across the Strip. Medical supplies will only last 1 more week. In southern Gaza, there was a warning Saturday that the Kuwait Specialized Hospital in Rafah may be forced to cease operations, announcing its medical supplies are expected to last just 1 more week. 1 more week. That's, of course, just what the Israelis want. Every Palestinian dead. They won't really settle for anything less.
Attracts me like no other lover. Something in the way she woos me. I don't want to leave her now. You know I believe in how. Somewhere in a smile, she knows.
Here's an appeal for those who want the Meshiach now. Remember,
of the new song that we're singing with Mashiach, right? So I'm just going to read him. Am Yisrael, have no fear. Mashiach will be here this year. We want Mashiach now. We don't want to wait. Okay?
Okay, you didn't hear it. Got it. Well, the Messiah, of course, is supposed to be the Jewish savior. And what you were seeing there with declarations, they don't want to wait, they want the Messiah now. Rabbi Schneerson, who is by some thought to be the Messiah, explained no, he couldn't be the Messiah because there are still Christians alive on the face of earth. Bear in mind, they want to kill all the Christians. That's their goal. Don't have any doubts about it. This is why Christian Zionism is really an indefensible, incoherent position if you actually understand the Zionist objective. Meanwhile, Turkish jets interfere with Israeli warplanes attacking Syria. As Israel continues to escalate its attacks across Syria, they're running into some resistance from Turkey. Turkey is reportedly frustrated with the growing Israeli airstrikes on Syria. An incident over the weekend, 2 Turkish F-16s were scrambled into Syrian airspace and interfered with Israeli warplanes actively attacking targets inside Syria. This is consistent with my observation about the Turkish warship in Pakistan. They'd love to come back with a number of those little beauties for the Turkish military in confrontation with Israel. Meanwhile, Qatar has accused Israel of genocide. After Qatar accused Israel of committing a genocidal war in Gaza, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu fired back. The time has come for Qatar to stop playing both sides with its double talk and decide if it's on the side of civilization or on the side of Hamas barbarism. Israel will win this just war with just means. Well, Israel isn't fighting a just war, but a grossly unjust. It isn't using just means, and most certainly Israel is not on the side of civilization. If either party could be said to be upholding principles of morality, it would be Hamas, not the IDF. Meanwhile, the Israeli Minister of Diaspora Affairs and Combating Anti-Semitism echoed, "We made a terrible mistake to negotiate with Qatar and bring Qatar as negotiators. Qatar is an enemy and a core part of the Muslim Brotherhood ideology. Yes, Qatar doesn't believe in genocide. And any country that doesn't believe in genocide is the enemy and a barbarian." Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia told the United States to keep Israeli normalization off the agenda for Trump's visit, and also that his visit couldn't take place while the United States was attacking Yemen. So if you want to say Trump claiming, he's made an agreement with the Houthis, it appears to me that it had to do with Saudi Arabia not wanting to meet with him. And they're so embarrassed, it's so awful, the genocide taking place, that the very idea of normalizing relations with Israel under these conditions is a non-starter, a no-brainer. Don't even put it on the discussion list. Saudi Arabia set a ground rule for Trump and his entourage ahead of their visit to the kingdom in May. Keep talk of normalization with Israel off the agenda. This was a message delivered by Saudi Foreign Minister bin Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud during his visit to Washington, D.C. last month to plan Trump's visit to the kingdom, and in follow-up discussions among senior officials. 2 Arab officials familiar with the talks told Middle East Eye. Very appropriate. Meanwhile, Sheinbaum, this is the president of Mexico, says she rejected Trump's offer to send U.S. troops to Mexico. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said she had rejected an offer from her United States counterpart Donald Trump to send U.S. troops to Mexico to help combat drug trafficking. Speaking at a public event on Saturday, Sheinbaum said Trump had asked her during a cell call how he could help fight organized crime and suggested sending U.S. troops, which she declined.
Anybody's help in any way. Now these days are gone, I'm not so self-assured. Now I find I've changed my mind, I'll open up the door.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Nothing you can sing that can't be sung. Nothing you can say, but you can learn how to play the game. It's easy.
Well, it's really happening. The numbers show that U.S. exports and U.S. imports are both collapsing dramatically. Over the last several decades, the global economy has become more interconnected than ever, but now everything is changing. The flow of goods between the number one economic power on the planet and the number two economic power on the planet is absolutely imploding, and that's going to have enormous implications on both sides of the Pacific. I've written quite a bit about the dramatic decline of U.S. imports, but the numbers show U.S. exports are falling precipitously as well. According to CNBC, there's been a 51% decline in exports at the Port of Portland, a 28% decline in exports at the Port of Tacoma. What began as a rapid drop in U.S. imports as shippers cut orders from manufacturing partners around the world has now extended into a nationwide export slump, with the U.S. agriculture sector and top farm products, including soybeans, corn, and beef, taking the hardest hit. The latest trade data shows that a slide in U.S. exports to the world, and China in particular, that began in January, now extends to most U.S. ports, according to trade tracker Vizon, which analyzed U.S. port container bookings for the 5-week period before President Trump's tariffs began and the 5-week after they took effect. The farming sector has been warning of a crisis, and port data is showing more evidence of a lack of ability to move product out to global markets. The Port of Portland, Oregon tops the list with a 51% decrease in exports, while the Port of Tacoma, Washington, a large agricultural export port, has seen a 28% decrease. Tacoma's top destination for corn, soybeans, and other agricultural exports include Japan, China, and South Korea. Meanwhile, we have the peace president with a gun to the sky, writes Pravda. They call him the peace president. Now, the man in the red hat and the twitching finger, the man of stage fog and promises rolled in gold leaf, saying he'll end the war while polishing the bullets. This is published on the 30th. He's shouting about the deficit again, like a preacher screaming about sin while pocketing the offering plate, cutting food stamps, health care, school lunches, the soft arms of society that hold up the herd, the tired and the broken. He says we have to tighten the belt. He says we're broke. Well, let's break that down for a second, shall we? The U.S. government deficit stands at $33 trillion. Admin is slashing programs like SNAP, food stamps, by $15 billion, while pushing for $1 trillion military budget. You read that right, $1 trillion for war, for drones, for bombs, for the blood of our neighbors who needs health care, for veterans forgotten in the streets, or children whose schools are crumbling around them. They say we can't afford to feed the poor, but we can afford to build more bombs. But then, he turns and tosses $1 trillion into the roaring mouth of the war machine, the great American god of metal and noise, the Pentagon beast that never sleeps. $1 trillion for tanks, for drones, for contracts soaked in oil and ambition, and says it's all for peace. He says peace with a capital P. What kind of peace comes at the end of a missile? What kind of peace needs 10 aircraft carriers, 20 more nukes, and the blood of thousands social programs drained out to keep the beast fed? Boy, they got it right. It's a disgrace. This is what Trump has brought us. I am completely appalled. I supported him strongly, but I am as disillusioned as I've ever been in my life. Meanwhile, Trump is telling the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney to his face that he's serious about taking Canada. Unbelievable. Reporter. Carney says Canada will not become a 51st state. What is your response, Trump? Never say never. This is a video report. Well, we know what's going on there. Meanwhile, CIA releases videos coaxing Chinese officials to leak secrets to the USA. Social media campaign depicts fictional scenes of officials becoming disillusioned with the ruling Chinese Communist Party. How about with the ruling Republican Party right here in America? I'm pretty disillusioned. The CIA has launched a Chinese language social media campaign calling on government officials in China to switch sides and leak secrets to the U.S. The two videos released Thursday depict fictional scenes involving Chinese officials who approach a top intelligence agency after becoming disillusioned with the ruling Communist Party of China. In one of the videos, an actor depicting a senior CCP member describes the fear he feels for his family as he witnesses officials around him being purged like worn-out shoes. I agree. And I'm afraid it's going to happen here. Don't let yourself be played. Meanwhile, Trump declares tariffs are going to make us rich. We don't need junk from China. Honestly, this appears to me to reflect his very dated understanding of the quality of Chinese goods and how ubiquitous they are within our society today. President Donald Trump said Sunday on NBC Meet the Press that tariffs would make the United States a rich nation. Trump said, the tariffs are going to make us rich. We'll be a very rich country. Host Kristen Welker, at your cabinet meeting, you said maybe the children will have 2 dolls instead of 30 dolls. Maybe the 2 dolls would cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally. Are you saying the tariffs will cause prices to go up? Trump said no. I think the tariffs will be great for us because it'll make us rich, Welker said. You said some dolls will cost more. Isn't that an acknowledgement it's going to make prices go up? Trump. I don't think a beautiful baby girl that's 11 years old needs to have 30 dolls. They can have 3 or 4. What we're doing with China is unbelievable. We lost hundreds of billions with China. So now Trump is going to tell us how many dolls our children can have. I mean, this is really not good. Really not good. Meanwhile, most powerful weapon. Japan blackmails Washington with $1 trillion of U.S. government debt. Japan's finance minister has taken a tough stance against the country's longtime ally in a psychological attempt on Donald Trump bullying. The official publicly called the country's holding of more than $1 trillion in U.S. Treasury bonds a trump card in trade talks with the admin in Washington. The move is a rare show of character from America's closest ally in Asia. During a television interview on Friday, Post asked the finance minister, whether Japan would use its traditional stance of not selling Treasury bonds as a tool in trade disputes with Washington. He replied, "It all depends on the situation. The national debt is a trump card. Whether to use it or not is another question." Japanese holders, including the government, have $1.13 trillion in Treasury bonds, the largest by a foreign country in the world entire. So they're going to have a lot of leverage. Meanwhile, Trump still would like to add Canada and Greenland, but says a military attack on Canada is highly unlikely. Well, gee, I'm sure relieved to hear that. Greenland, on the other hand, I don't rule it out. He told Kristen Welker during that same interview, "I don't say I'm going to do it, but I don't rule out anything. No, not there. We need Greenland very badly. Greenland is a very small amount of people, which we'll take care of and we'll cherish them and all of that. But we need that for international security." Yeah, they're going to cherish the people of Greenland just like they're cherishing you and me right here in the USA. The citizens are neglecting by spending all their money on underground bases for the rich and the elite and letting us starve to death in place. It's outrageous. This is not what I voted for. Meanwhile, Trump orders a reopening of Alcatraz. Reuters reporting, San Francisco. U.S. President Donald Trump said Sunday he was directing the Federal Bureau of Prisons to rebuild and reopen the infamous Alcatraz prison in the San Francisco Bay to house America's most ruthless and violent offenders. Rebuild and open Alcatraz, he posted on Truth Social. When we were a more serious nation in times past, we did not hesitate to lock up the most dangerous criminals and keep them far away from anyone they could harm. The federal prison of Alcatraz housed notorious U.S. criminals such as Al Capone before it closed in 1963. It is now one of San Francisco's most popular tourist attractions. Well, Trump intends to change all that. Meanwhile, why the sudden change of heart? Here's a good one. Catch this. A deportation history lesson for Democrats. While Democrats beg for the return of an illegal who roused himself in the middle of the night to slap his wife, they seem to forget their long history of embracing deportation efforts by anyone except President Trump. A viral video uses the Democrats' own words to underscore the point. Narrator, remember this. Barack Obama. If you're a criminal, you'll be deported. If you plan to enter the U.S. illegally, your chances of getting caught and sent back just went up. The actions I'm taking are not only lawful, they're the kinds of action taken by every single Republican president and every single Democrat president for the past half century. Narrator. You wouldn't believe that looking at the media today, though, they act like Trump is the worst, most awful, evil person ever for deporting illegal alien criminals. Yet Obama, Bill Clinton, and other Democrats were all on board with this for years up until Trump. And they're on tape saying so. Hillary Clinton committed a crime, deport him. No question asked, they're gone. Bill Clinton, the public service they use imposes burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before, by cracking down on illegal hiring, by banning welfare benefits for illegal aliens. Chuck Schumer. We use phrases like undocumented workers. We convey a message to the American people that their government is not serious about combating illegal immigration. Narrator, oh, really? Obama. We simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked. Bill Clinton. We will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crime to better identify illegal aliens in the workplace. Narrator. This is your reminder that Barack Obama deported 5.3 million. Bill Clinton deported 12.3. They were fine with it. So why the sudden change of heart? Yeah, good question. Really good question. Meanwhile, federal funding to Harvard has been terminated. I cannot believe this. Absolutely stunning. Just in. Education Secretary Linda McMahon sent a scathing letter to Harvard informing them they're no longer receiving any federal funding. Harvard should no longer seek grants since none will be provided. Harvard can operate as a private funded institution. Yearly tuition at Harvard, it's stunning. $59,312. Health service, $1,800. Housing rate, $13,532. Student services, $3,676. Food rates, $8,598. Total for 1 year at Harvard, $86,926. That's just for a year. Meanwhile, Michigan drops a charge against pro-Palestinian U.S. student protesters. Good for them. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel has dropped charges against 7 student protesters from the University of Michigan, citing legal delays and controversy surrounding the U.S. case, which he said had become a lightning rod of contention. The decision on Monday puts an end to the case that started in May 2024, when the students who pled not guilty were charged with trespassing or resisting a police officer while attending a pro-Palestinian campus protest. We feel vindicated that the case was dismissed, said Jamil Kuja, member of the defense team for the students. These individuals committed no crime whatsoever. They were exercising their right to protest and engage in political speech on public property. Yes, indeed they were. Meanwhile, Abbott, the governor of Texas, threatens
Eleanor Rigby picks up the rice in the church where a wedding has been. Lives in a dream, waits at the window, wearing the face that she keeps in a jar by the door. Who is it for? All the lonely people.
If you're an
Oh, yesterday came suddenly. Why she had to go, I don't know, she wouldn't say. I said something wrong, now I long for yesterday. Yesterday, love was such an easy game to play. Now I need a place to hide away. Oh, I believe.
Well, of similar ilk, if on a lesser scale, Governor Abbott of Texas threatened state funding if San Marcos calls for a ceasefire in Gaza. How bad is this? I used to think this was a halfway decent guy. Governor Greg Abbott threatened state funding after the city of San Marcos placed a resolution in support of a ceasefire in Gaza on the city council agenda for Tuesday. My God, all I did was put it on the agenda, and it's so appropriate. The resolution, proposed by council members Alyssa Garza and Amanda Rodriguez, calls for an immediate, permanent, and sustained ceasefire in occupied Palestine, an arms embargo in the state of Israel, and recognition of Palestinian sovereignty and protection of constitutional rights. Pretty modest, if you ask me. Although these measures don't have a direct impact on federal policy, cities across the country, including Portland, Maine, Detroit, and Oakland, California, have passed ceasefire divestment resolutions. But the governor doesn't like it. How ridiculous is that? Meanwhile, it turns out 9 COVID vaccines are responsible for more American casualties than World War I, World War II, and the Vietnam War combined. Would you believe? As the estimated COVID vax death toll reaches 600,000, and the number has got to be vastly greater, we must stand in solemn solidarity and remembrance of the fallen, just as we have for those who fought and died in service to our country. And here we have two giant graphs. COVID-19 vaccine deaths. VAERS death, 19,355, conservative underreporting factor equals 600,005 vax deaths. World War I, 116,000. World War II, 405,000. Vietnam, 58,000. Total, 580,124. More from the vax than from those three monstrous wars. Meanwhile, deep fakes are now outsmarting detection by mimicking heartbeats. How about that? The ways of simulating human beings are virtually never-ending. Recent research reveals high-quality deepfakes unintentionally retain the heartbeat patterns of their source videos, undermining traditional detection methods that rely on detecting subtle skin color changes linked to heartbeat. The assumption that deepfakes lack physiological signals, such as heart rate, are no longer valid. This challenges many existing detection tools